so far, our discussion with the American response to the British invasion and the music of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and other British artists in the mid-1960s, so far our discussion has really focused on the way the music industry responded and the way professional musicians responded to the threat or the market incursion of the British bands all of a sudden on the charts and having all kinds of popularity. But when the Beatles first performed on February the 9th, 1964 on the Ed Sullivan Show, there were kids all across the country who saw the Beatles and wanted to be just like them. Now, not everybody who wants to play music is going to end up having a hit record and a career in music, but so there's always a much, much larger number of people who play music for fun and for recreation than who do it professionally. In many ways, the scene that was called the garage band or the garage rock kind of scene that arose in the 60s was a direct consequence of kids all of a sudden who maybe already played guitar because during the folk revival they'd been humming and strumming to Kingston Trio songs or Peter, Paul and Mary, you know, hanging out by the beach campfire singing these kinds of songs. And when the Beatles came along, it turned out they could use a lot of those same chords, and if they just got an electric guitar and a drummer and a bass player, why, they could all of a sudden have a band. And of course they're called garage bands because the first place they could find to rehearse was probably in a garage if it wasn't in a basement somewhere. And so you get what garage band, the term has come to characterize, is a kind of a raw, rough and ready, full of enthusiasm, but maybe not so full of skill and musical prowess kind of music that has a kind of charm because of its the sheer energy of it. So these groups, these garage band groups, spring up all around the country, and some of them get awfully good. But like doo-wop, a lot of them are also kind of one-hit wonders because they've got this one song that they can really do very well, and so they'll have a regional hit with that song, but then it's very difficult for them to follow up. So the records themselves maybe were only ever released regionally, and so among record collectors, it used to be finding these various hits by these relatively unknown groups was great sport at record collector shows and that kind of thing. Well, in 1972, a guy by the name of Lenny Kaye came along and put together a double album called Nuggets. This double album, Nuggets, really focused on the garage band sound and pulled together a lot of records that had been previously very, very difficult to find by groups that weren't so famous. I mean, on Lenny Kaye, you're not going to find, you know, much Byrds or Paul Revere and the Raiders or that kind of thing, but you're going to find things by other groups that they're sort of a little bit more obscure. That album, it turns out, this garage band collection, Nuggets, ended up being very influential on the punk musicians, especially in the New York scene, who would later become the Ramones, Television, Talking Heads, those kinds of. Lenny Kaye himself would end up playing for Patti Smith. So the resurgence of interest just a few years later in garage band music is helped immeasurably by this Nuggets collection. In fact, when it was translated to CD, the Nuggets collection, they went from I mean, everything that was on the original Nuggets collection fits on the first CD, but they expanded it to be a 4 CD set. So now when you buy the box set Nugget, you get tons and tons of stuff. Really gives you a really good idea of all the variety of stuff that was happening in this garage band scene in this period between about 64, 66, 67, in that window there. The most important garage band for us to talk about, or group associated with the garage band sound, is a group called the Kingsman out of Portland, Oregon. And in many ways, the Pacific Northwest is often seen as a sort of a hotbed of garage band activities in the mid-1960s. Anyway, their big hit, their infamous hit, was Louie Louie, which was a #2 hit in late 1963, early 1964. So just before the Beatles, still on the charts at the same time when the Beatles came along. This song, Louie Louie, was enormously controversial. It was controversial because it was said that there was profanity in the lyrics, that somebody in there was saying, swear words or talking about sexual activities or something like that, but nobody could really tell. In fact, anybody who wanted to know what the lyrics were could have gone to the original recording by Richard Berry, who'd written the song and recorded it with the Pharaohs in 1957. It's kind of calypso-flavored R&B, which was sort of big at that time in 57. And the lyrics are very, very clear. And once you know what the lyrics are, you can pretty much make out that they're what they are on the Kingsman record. But of course, nobody bothered to check that. And so there was this idea that Louie Louie contained bad words. It contains swearing. In fact, it was such a big controversy that both the FCC and the FBI were called in. The FBI, using their highest tech equipment to look at sound scans or whatever of his lyrics and see if they could figure out whether those swear words were actually there. And in the end, they decided that they really couldn't tell. But for the Kingsman and for Louie Louie, it made the song, the middle of a big controversy for a while, and was very, very good for business. Louie Louie is, if you're going to look at one song that is the sort of controversy song, sort of prototype, Louie Louie was that song. In fact, music journalist Dave Marsh wrote an entire book about Louie Louie and all of the shenanigans and episodes and scandal sort of associated with it. It's a fascinating kind of study. But when we think about, for example, the Rolling Stones, Can't Get No Satisfaction, and the controversy that began to swirl around that was only about a year after all this controversy with Louie Louie. We think about the Byrds, 8 Miles High, and the controversy around that being a drug song. Again, this whole controversy around songs is something that we see again and again. Louie Louie, the prime example. As far as the Kingsmen are concerned, they went on in 1964 to have a hit with a song called Money, and then in 1965 with a song called The Jolly Green Giant, that was about it for them. Other notable hits on that Nuggets CD, the CDs now are the original album. There's hits from the original album that you might find interesting, are a tune by the Electric Prunes out of LA called I Had Too Much to Dream Last Night. That was a number 11 hit in 1966. Of course, the lyric, I had too much to dream last night, is a play on I had too much to drink last night, right? But during these sort of, heady days of sort of pre-psychedelia, I had too much to dream last night. Oh, wow, that's very groovy. The Standells from LA had a tune called Dirty Water, a number 11 hit in 1965. So a pretty big hit there, but it's a song with a Boston theme that has, the Dirty Water apparently is the water in the Charles River in Boston, and now it's become the Dirty Water song has become a sort of a big theme song for a lot of Boston sports teams. So it's usually associated with Boston, even though the Standells themselves were originally from Los Angeles. The best duplicate of a Beatles record, not actually by the Beatles, was probably by a group from New Jersey called the Knickerbockers, and their song Lies, which was a number 20 hit from 1966. That song sounds so much like the Beatles. For years, I thought it was a Beatles song, and I couldn't figure out which album it was on. And then finally, it's probably worth pointing out the song by the Seeds from Los Angeles called You're Pushin' Too Hard. It was a number 36 hit for them in 1967, although it had originally been released in 1965. A song written by the lead singer of the group, who apparently wrote the entire song while he was waiting for his girlfriend while she was shopping in the grocery store. Interestingly, fans of Frank Zappa will know You're Pushing Too Hard is satirized a little bit in the Frank Zappa album Joe's Garage. So the garage band scene and a very interesting kind of phenomenon, one that is embraced later, as I say, by punk musicians. The music was okay popular, but not nearly as big as a lot of the other stuff that we're talking about in the 60s. But it was idolized by musicians in the 70s who wanted to get away from what they thought was the overproduction of music at that time and get back to something that was a little bit more rootsy, a little bit more authentic, a lot less produced, and so the garage bands became the heroes. Nuggets was the album that helped make that happen. In the next video, we'll turn to television and talk about TV rock.